Okay, so hello everyone. Today I will continue with my journey through Attack on Titan. More specifically, today I will watch Season 3, Episode 2 of Attack on Titan. Now I know that I've promised that because of my absence that I'll try to refresh my memory by rewatching Season 1 and 2 before continuing with this episode, but I wasn't successful with that. Basically, a company was making some diggings around this area. They accidentally have damaged the cable which provides the internet connection, so I was without the internet for the majority of the past 3 days, which is why I was in a weird situation where I wasn't able to do anything in regards to this channel. I wasn't able to rewatch any past episodes. I wasn't able to continue with this season, which is definitely a pity, because as everyone else, I also don't have unlimited time available. But these things can happen. Accidents can always happen. I have to accept these things and try to move on and try to maneuver through all these obstacles. But anyways, my main point here is that I wasn't able to rewatch Season 1 or 2. More specifically, I wasn't even able to watch any episode of these past 2 seasons. I mean, of course, I could do that now. I could try to rewatch these 2 seasons today, tomorrow, etc. But if I do that, that would mean that the release of this particular reaction, my reaction to episode 2 of season 3, would get delayed, and I really don't want that to happen. Especially after being absent for such a long time, I really want to find some semblance of consistency when it comes to this channel. I really want to stick to my uploading schedule, which is at least a video per week, and that's why I really don't want to afford any further delays. I don't want this video to get delayed. I really want to publish this video within this week. That's why I decided that today I will continue with season 3. And don't get me wrong, that does not mean that my plan to rewatch the past 2 seasons will get abandoned. This is still one of the main priorities going forward. But in the past few days, I decided that I won't try to rush that. I will probably do both these things simultaneously. So at the same time, I will continue with season 3, while simultaneously off screen, I'll try to rewatch season 1 and 2. I think from a time managing perspective, this will be much more manageable and easier to execute. But yeah, with that being said, my main point is I failed to rewatch any episodes of the past 2 seasons, and because I don't want my uploading schedule to suffer, I decided to continue with season 3 today. And yeah, before I dive into this episode, I just want you to I want to give a question to you all, and that question is, could you please give me some feedback regarding the microphone? I don't know why, maybe it's just me, but I think that the microphone sounds a bit worse than it did 2-3 months ago. I don't know, as I said, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just in my head, but that's why I'm asking you if you could share your feedback, your opinion regarding the microphone, so that I can know if I'm just imagining things or if there's truly something wrong with the microphone. But yeah, with that being said, let's now dive into this particular episode, into episode 2 of season 3. Now, as you all know, in my previous video, which was my reaction to episode 1 of season 3, I forgot to talk about a few things, especially my predictions for this episode, for this upcoming episode, so I think there's no better time to do that than right now. And my prediction for this episode is that it will probably continue where it left off. I just don't see any other scenario right now. Maybe we might follow Reiner, Bertolt, and Ymir on their journey to... I'm pretty sure that they're going back to Reiner and Bertolt's hometown. So I think there is a possibility that we might follow them. But I think it's unlikely at this point in time. I'm 90% sure that we will continue where we left off. And looking at where the episode left off, basically it ended by Kenny and his gang, squad members, arriving. And basically, as you all know, they have killed Nifa and also another soldier, member of the Survey Corps. As you all know, I don't know his name, but I do know who he is. But yeah, the main point is that he got killed, Nifa got killed, and of course, that's why this situation is tricky for our characters, especially Levi, because he seems to be in the center of the danger. You know, because Mikasa, Konya and everyone else are at a different location. Eren and Historia are hiding inside that carriage, although I have to make a disclaimer that there is a chance that Kenya and his soldiers are aware of their location, of them being inside that carriage. But I'm not too sure if that's the case. I'm not too sure if they are aware of where the location of Eren and Historia is, but they definitely are aware of Levi's location because, well, they've seen him. So he is in the center of the danger. His, cover was blown up. He got quote-unquote exposed. So I definitely worry about him, but I don't worry that much because, judging by Nifa's words, there's pixies somewhere close. And knowing pixies, he definitely has to have a plan for a scenario like this. And at the end of the day, he's the commander of the garrison, and yes, the king and the council and the whole government are above pixies, that's definitely sure. But I'm pretty certain that pixies has to have some loyal soldiers, there have to be some I'm pretty sure that there are some soldiers who are completely loyal only to pixies. So I think pixies can help out Levi. And also Levi, as we all know, is not just a capable fighter, he is the best fighter in this universe. And yes, of course, I have to say this, he had that injury not so long ago. So that definitely means that even though he is a good fighter, he definitely is a bit crippled, I suppose. So yeah, that makes his situation tougher. But if I'm being honest, I just don't believe that he could. I mean, he definitely will have a hard time, I think, but I don't believe he can die here. Maybe I'm being too confident, but knowing this show, I think if Levi dies, he will die in a different scenario. Like maybe, sacrificing himself for someone like Eren or Erwin, or sacrificing himself for the sake of humanity. Something like that will probably happen with him, because he's one of the main characters. This show has invested so much time into him. And it would be, and I think it would be a bit underwhelming if he dies at the hands of some assassins which have appeared right now out of the blue. I mean, yeah, they have a past with Kenny, but we don't know much about their past. So I don't see a scenario where Levi dies right now. I don't know, maybe I'm too confident, maybe this will backfire on me, but in this universe, in this story, Levi being one of the most important characters, Levi being probably the best Titan Slayer who ever lived, I think that because of all these things, there's a small chance of him dying here, but I could be completely wrong. A lot of unexpected things have happened in Attack on Titan, so I guess we just have to find out by watching this episode, so I will just start watching. Also, I apologize if you will see me looking in the mirror on multiple occasions through this reaction, because I will have to do that to check if the camera is still working, because I don't have a lot of space on this camera right now. So I'm definitely afraid that it might stop working at one point during this reaction, and that would definitely be a disaster for me, because you cannot redo reactions. So I apologize for this, but I will definitely look in the mirror a lot more often during this reaction than I normally do, because I'm afraid that it could stop working. But anyways, let's now start watching. Pain. Yeah, that sounds worrying. Interesting. These guys are definitely well equipped. They have these what are these called? Sleep arrows available? That's really dangerous. Whoa. So Kenny was teaching him how to fight, right? Yeah, they're probably shocked seeing Levi probably killing humans, right? He probably is killing them. Yeah, interesting. No, I don't believe he's dead. Man, this show really wants to play with your emotions as a viewer. Wait, what did he say? I'm sorry, I need to rewind. Did he say that he was a member of the Survey Corps? Like, I do remember. I'm sorry that I wasn't paying attention because I was remembering, and maybe you remember that, like, back when Nile was first featured, I talked about how it seems that Nile and Eren have a past, a common past, that there has happened something between them in the past, that they know each other from before, and this is now confirmed here. So I was thinking about that and I forgot to focus, so I wasn't able to catch what Eren said. Oh, so he wanted to be a member of the Survey Corps. No. Is John actually dead? He's probably crying because they are forced to kill people. Yeah. Oh, because he... Right. I understand now. Ah, poor Armin. That's true.
人と戦うなんて間違ってると思ってました。そんなことをいきなりやらせる兵長のことも。何が本当に正しいかなんて俺は言ってない。そんなことはわからないから。お前は本当に間違っていたのか。さてと、そろそろあいつらの話を聞かないとな。待ってくれ。俺は馬車の運送に使われているただの追い物だ。あなたとは会ったことがある。
Yeah. I actually thought that he looked familiar, but I wasn't talking about this in the previous episode. Oh. So they figured out that the warriors are trying to get the power of the coordinate, and the only way by doing that is, of course, by being eaten by a titan. She can now revenge for Nick.
Eren と Historia はどこだ。なぜ Historia を狙う。僕らはもう犯罪者だよ。今相手にしている敵は僕らを食べようとしてくるから殺すわけじゃない。考え方が違うから。アルミン。
I mean, I understand Armin.
いい人じゃないよ。なぜ今まで戦争が起きなかったかわかる。俺たち第一憲兵がこの汚い手で守ってきたんだよ。下手に利口な教師から空を飛ぼうとしたバカな夫婦も田舎の牧場にいたバイトも俺には王がいる。俺はそのあんたを信じてる。俺たちのやってきたことは間違ってないと。けどこんなに言いたかったんだな。休憩だ。おい、押すな。痛えな。なるかよ。そりゃあいつの勝手だ。王だの平和だの暑苦しいやつで俺らは迷惑してたんだ。
Whoa.
お前の証言と一致するか確かめるまではダメだ。
Interesting.
さあサネス、気を取り直そう。私も辛いけど頑張って拷問する。レイスケが本当の王家だ。
Okay. But what would that mean? So what's ironic here is that I thought that Historia is the king's daughter, and she actually is. Wait, I just need to rewind this. Isn't that Mikasa's last name? I might be wrong because we haven't heard Mikasa's last name for a long time, but I'm pretty sure that she's Mikasa Ackerman. And Levi has the same last name as her. Are they related? I don't know what to think of this. Because no, I really don't know what. I mean, it definitely has to mean something. I don't believe that he would have this last name, you know, for no reason. The creator of this show gave him this last name for a purpose, right? So they're related, right? And they both are how should I say, extremely, not just capable fighters, but, you know, they have, you know, extreme senses, they, you know, extreme body control. Like, is that it? Is there something supernatural about the Ackerman family? Are they potentially even, you know, a brother and sister? I mean, I don't know how old Levi is. He seems to me like he's around, I don't know, 25? So there is a possibility that maybe he is Mikasa's lost brother. Maybe he was kidnapped by Kenny. But why would that be? No, I don't think he was kidnapped by Kenny. I mean, Kenny said that he raised him. But maybe Levi, you know, got lost or something and ended up living with Kenny. I'm not entirely sure, but... And a few minutes ago we had that reveal about Historia. Okay, there are a lot of things to take in right now. This is interesting. Yeah. Oh man. Rod Reiss. So the ending. The song reminds me of something, but I don't know what. Man, I still can't believe that she... Oh. That was cool. Okay, oh, quickly to stop before the preview starts. Okay. Yeah. I don't know where to start. Man, after all this time, I almost forgot how much I enjoyed this show. Since since the last thing was the ending, I'll quickly comment on the ending. It was an interesting ending. It was mostly revolving around Historia. There are some scenes when she's a child, when she's grown up. There are also some scenes of other characters like Ymir. I won't focus too much on these scenes in this ending because, unless if you, of course, want me to do, if you want me to do the same thing which I did with the ending of season 2, let me know. But none of you have said anything about this ending, so I won't do any in detail analysis about this ending. The most interesting thing, I guess, was the fact that Historia saw a woman I don't think I've seen before, although she looked a bit similar to Carla, but I don't think it was Carla. But other than that, especially the song in this open ending is probably my favorite. I loved the part when they started to sing the chorus from the opening of season 2. You know, the part when they sing about dedicating their hearts. You know, that was awesome, you know. Gave me almost a nostalgic feeling. But yeah, to focus now on this episode, I still cannot believe that Historia actually ended up being the king's daughter. I mean, she still is the daughter of Lord Reiss, but now we learn that Lord Reiss is the true king. So she is the king's daughter. And it's so funny because I made this assumption by an accident. If we go back to, was it episode 4 of season 2? Where, I think, you know, it was a scene where Ymir was listening to two priests talking about Historia, and they were talking about her nobility. And I understood that scene because I wasn't, you know, thinking that there are other noble families except for the royal family in this world. I immediately understood that as a proof that she is the king's daughter, that she is a part of the royal family. I think you all remember those times. I still remember when a lot of you in the comment section were explaining to me that other noble families other than the royal family do exist. So, of course, through your comments and, of course, through the story, especially if we look at the previous episode, Erwin said, why would a mere regional lord be aware of the secrets of the walls? Because of all these things, I was led to believe that, of course, yeah, there's no chance that Historia is a part of the royal family. She is the daughter of, just like Erwin said, a mere regional lord, and now she ends up being the king's daughter in reality. It's crazy that this has happened. So yeah, this is really interesting and funny at the same time, I guess. But it's not only interesting because I accidentally thought that she's the king's daughter. It's also interesting because of all the things this could mean for the story. Because all of the questions which this brings. I mean, the main question which came to my mind is why? Why are they hiding this? Why is Reiss pretending that he's not the king? I don't get it. What would he achieve by doing this? But he's still participating in the king's council. But he's not sitting on the throne. Why would he do that? I mean, yeah, I understand that if you are the king, that you definitely are an easy target, right? You definitely will have some enemies, and because you're the king, because you are this public figure, that's why when you're in this position, usually the people know everything about you. They know your location, they know who your relatives are, etc. Maybe this could explain my question, you know. I understand that maybe Lord Reiss is hiding his status because he's trying to protect himself. But of course, if that's true, then comes another question. From what or from who is he trying to protect himself? I don't know, maybe the Beast Titan, maybe something like that could answer this. Of course, then another question is Historia aware of this? Is she aware that of the true status of her father and, of course, herself? I don't think so. I think she's not aware of that. I suppose that if she were to know that she's the king's daughter, she would probably already have told her friends. So I don't think she's aware of that. I don't think she's aware that she's the king's daughter. Of course, then another question is, who's the guy who sits on the throne then? If he's not the king, if Fritz is not the king, who the hell is he? Yeah, definitely, all these questions are definitely important and interesting questions. But now that I think about it, I suppose the most important question right now is, what does this mean for the story? What does the fact that Lord Reiss and Historia are members of the royal family, that basically Reiss is the king and that Historia is basically the princess of this society, what does this mean for the future of this story? I mean, it definitely helped Hange and Levi realize the location of Eren and Historia. Hange came to the conclusion that they are probably somewhere where Lord Reiss, or rather King Reiss, is located. But other than that, at least for me right now, me knowing their true nobility status doesn't mean that much. I haven't learned anything about the secrets of the walls, about the titans, about Lord Reiss's true goals and motives, All these questions which I had in the previous, not all, but a lot of the questions which I had in the previous discussion are still relevant. I still don't know why the king is trying to capture Eren and Historia. So again, what I'm trying to say here, I hope that I haven't confused anyone, is just the fact that, I'm not saying that this isn't important. It's great to know this piece of the truth, I suppose. But me knowing that Historia is basically the princess and that Lord Reiss is actually King Reiss at this particular moment in time doesn't explain a lot of my questions which I have regarding the story, of course. But yeah, this whole thing is definitely a major reveal to me, and this wasn't the only reveal in this episode. The other reveal was Levi's family name, Levi's last name, which is Ackerman. And as I was talking a few minutes ago, they have to be related to Mikasa and Levi. In one way or another. Maybe they're distant, maybe they're close relatives. But whatever is the case, I just don't think it's a coincidence that they share the same last name. Of course it's possible, but I don't believe that they would do that. Especially in a show like Attack on Titan. I just don't believe that. So yeah, definitely, his last name there's a meaning behind him and Mikasa sharing the same last name. And of course what that meaning is, I don't know. As I said, maybe they're related. And maybe because of that, maybe the fact that they are related could explain, as I said, the fact that they're such good fighters, that they are, as I said, they basically sometimes, especially Levi, appear to be superhumans. We can look at the previous episode when Kenny arrived, when he appeared, and when he started to climb towards the roof, towards Levi. He was extremely silent, but Levi heard him. There is something superhuman about Levi. And let's not forget Mikasa's past. In that flashback episode when we were following a young Mikasa, and we were following and seeing her story about her family and how her parents died, we were shown that there was a yellow lightning going around her and her brain, and you all know that I theorized a lot about this, and what I'm trying to say is that there's something supernatural about both of them, right? Maybe they both are Titan shifters, or maybe something in that category, but whatever the case may be, their special supernatural attributes, properties have probably the same explanation. If it's maybe that Ackermans are born with superhuman abilities, or maybe it's that Levi and Mikasa are, maybe brother and sister, and maybe their father was experimenting with them, which resulted in them becoming, quote unquote superhumans. Whatever the case is, I think there is a common explanation. There's one explanation which will explain all these anomalies when it comes to them, all their special properties, all their superhuman capabilities. I think there's one explanation for both of them. I hope that you understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, the fact that Historia and her father are the true members of the royal family, the fact that Levi, his last name is Ackerman, are probably the major two reveals of this episode. But besides these two things, these two reveals, what stood out a lot in this episode is this theme of morality. You know, they were exploring the theme of what's right, what's wrong, you know. They were exploring the question, is it right to kill someone? Does killing someone make you a bad person? And that was really interesting, you know. The camera is going to die out in a few minutes, and as I said, I don't have a lot of space available on this camera, so I'll have to stop in any moment. So I won't talk too much about this now. I will focus on this later on in the episode breakdown. But what I will say about this thing is that you need, at least in my opinion, you need to be prepared to do what your enemies are prepared to do. Like, that's usually the only way you can win. If your enemy is prepared to kill you, you need to be prepared to kill him. That's usually how life works, you know. If someone is trying to kill you, the only way, not the only way, but there is a high chance that if you will want to survive, you will be forced to kill that person first before that person can kill you, because otherwise, you know, you will die. Or like in this instance, Jean would die if Armin wouldn't have pulled the trigger, just like Levi said. And I think that's the right thing to do, because this is your best way of defending yourself. I mean, Armin and Levi and everyone else, they definitely didn't have any intentions to kill anyone, but they were attacked. I mean, yes, also that woman, that assassin who hesitated. I mean, if she hesitated to kill Jean, is she even an assassin? I don't know, but she definitely is a mercenary of Kenny. Basically, that woman was hesitating to kill Levi. Not Levi, I'm sorry. That woman was hesitating to kill Jean. So she didn't want to kill him, just like Armin didn't want to kill her. But so maybe you could say that their situation is similar, but it isn't, because it was Kenny and his gang members who attacked first. You know, they were the ones initiating this fight. Levi, Armin, and everyone else was just trying to escape, just trying to protect Eren and Historia. So if she would have killed Jean, that would be wrong, in my opinion. But the fact that Armin killed her is not wrong. Because as I said, he did that to save Jean. I mean, yeah, you could say that she wanted to kill Jean so that she could save herself. But as I said, the difference here between Armin and her situation is the fact that she initiated this fight. She was the hunter. She was the one. I mean, she could walk away. She had the opportunity to walk away from this situation. She had the opportunity to not obey Kenny or take his money or whatever happened. But no, she decided to participate. She decided to hunt these people down. She decided to initiate and be the one who started the attack. And Armin was just defending himself. And defending yourself is not a wrong thing to do. So I don't think that Armin or any one of these characters is a bad guy. I don't think they did anything wrong. They did what they had to do and what I believe is right, you know. Of course, it's difficult to kill someone, you know. I mean, me being the person who I am, I'm not a fan of people dying, even if it means that that's their only way to survive. But in situations like these, when Armin had no other choice, when Armin was just defending him and his friends, I think it's justifiable, and I think Armin, as I said, I understand Armin's feelings, but I don't think he should consider himself being a criminal. But that's just my opinion, I suppose. But yeah, with that being said, I think I will have to stop here because, as I said, the camera's about to die. And the storage probably is also full on it. So yeah, maybe I'll continue later on or probably tomorrow. So yeah. So yeah, that's it for my post-reaction thoughts. Let's now continue with the episode breakdown. Well, this episode started off basically where the previous one ended. It continued with that scene between Levi and Kenny. And then Kenny attacked Levi with the help of some of his other soldiers. Levi was heavily outnumbered, which is why, at least at the beginning of this episode, for the most part, Levi was constantly being on the run because that was basically his only option if he wanted to survive. And at the same time, we have seen how some other Kenny's soldiers have located Eren and Historia, and then I think they have, I don't know how that's called, the cover of the carriage, I think. They've removed the cover of the carriage, which made Eren and Historia, quote-unquote exposed. They became much easier targets to shoot, and that's basically what those soldiers did. They shot Eren and Historia, but they have not used some regular, typical ammunition. They've used these things, which I think are called sleep arrows or sleep darts. And I think that you were able to see by my reaction that when I saw that these arrows exist, like, that was really significant to me. Maybe even groundbreaking, and I know that you might be thinking that I am exaggerating, but if you think about it, this is probably the best weapon available against Titan shifters. I mean, at least at this moment in time. Of course, besides Eren, because he is right now, I guess, what you could call the best weapon available against Titan shifters. But besides Eren, there's almost no one else, or rather nothing else, who can do any, significant damage to Titan shifters. And of course, I know that these arrows probably don't work against Titan shifters when they are in their Titan form. I don't believe that these arrows can make a Titan, fall asleep. I don't believe that these arrows can make a Titan become unconscious. But they certainly are effective against Titan shifters when they are in their human form, which was proven in this episode. I mean, as soon as Eren was shot, he immediately became unconscious and became a non-factor for that whole battle. I mean, just imagine if the Corps had access to these arrows at a time when they have figured out that Annie is the female Titan. I mean, almost everything that has happened at the end of Season 1 would not have happened. They probably would have captured her before her transformation, which would mean that the battle between her and Eren would not have happened, which means that all the consequences of that battle would not have happened. And also probably Annie would have never frozen, which means that the Corps would probably have a chance to interrogate her. So, I mean, that whole thing would have been so much easier if the Corps had access to these arrows. But, of course, they don't. At least I don't think they have any access to arrows or to anything similar to this, because if the Corps had actually access to these sleep arrows, then I think they would have used them against Annie and probably also against Reiner and Bertolt. But they haven't. So I don't believe that the Corps had or has access to these arrows. But of course that begs the question why, right? I suppose that this means that these sleep arrows and this equipment in general is difficult to access, difficult to find. But if that's true, then that begs another question. Why has Kenny and his squad access to this equipment and these arrows? And I have to say that I don't know. I mean, they're different answers. They're different possible answers. I mean, one could be that maybe the government gave that to Kenny, but if that's true, then why haven't they also given these things to, the police brigade? I mean, does the government trust some assassins like Kenny more than they trust the police brigade? I don't know, I personally don't believe that. So I don't believe that the government gave that to Kenny. I don't believe that the government has access to these things. I mean, so what else? What else could explain this? I don't know. I mean, maybe Kenny found these things on the black market. I mean, him being this well-known criminal, he definitely has a lot of connections in the criminal underworld. So maybe that could explain this. Or maybe, this is just me speculating, but maybe Kenny found these things in the society, or rather civilization, where Ymir lived, in her hometown. Now again, this is just a speculation, I have almost no evidence for this, but if you think about it, Kenny is a well-known serial killer. And he's not just killing random people, he's known for killing policemen. But he never got caught. If you're a well-known serial killer who kills a ton of policemen, then you probably are the number one target of the police brigade. You're number one on their wanted list, but they never were able to catch him. And also Levi thought that Kenny was dead. So what if Kenny disappeared from this civilization? What if he, for a certain period of time, lived in Ymir's hometown? That's why he, quote-unquote, disappeared. That's why they never were able to imprison him. And that's why also Levi thought that he's dead. I mean, it is possible, and if Kenny actually lived in Ymir's hometown, maybe that's where he found this equipment, especially these sleeping arrows. And maybe you're asking yourself, why would that civilization have access to these things, and this civilization not? And my answer to that would be, well, we know that, I don't know how many civilizations there are, but we know for two of them. One is the civilization inside the walls, and one is in Ymir's hometown. It seems that, I don't know for how long, but it seems that for a pretty long period of time, these two civilizations have been developing separately. So there's a high chance that they know and have access to a lot of things in Ymir society which the people inside the walls don't. I mean, we actually have a proof for this, that food can of herring. These people inside the walls don't even know what herring is, but in that Ymir's hometown, they're producing cans of herring. So what I'm trying to say is, again, this is just a speculation. This is not a strong theory, but I think it's possible. I think it's possible that Kenny lived for a certain period of time in that society, in that civilization. And if that's true, that would definitely explain a lot of my questions. But yeah, basically, let's go back to my main point, which is that these weapons, especially these sleeping darts, are their existence is extremely significant, at least in my opinion, for this story going forward, because as I said, these, as proven in this episode, are really effective against Titan shifters. But yeah, basically going back to the episode, Eren and Historia were shot, they both became unconscious, and then we went back to follow Levi, who, as I said, was constantly being forced to, retreat, to evade all those attacks. And as he was evading all those gunshots, we had a very short flashback scene, which I think seems to be a flashback scene of the time when Kenny and Levi have met. As I said, it was a short scene. We only had 3 images, this one, and this one. And because they're just 3 images, as I said, it's hard to, learn a lot of information out of these 3 images. But there's some things which I think we can assume. The one thing is that this was probably the time when they have first met. And I think here, Kenny decided that he will adopt Levi. He probably never officially adopted him, but we know that he raised him, which was said by Kenny himself at the end of this episode. And I think he decided to adopt him because he felt bad for Levi. And this image explains why that potentially may be true, because the state in which Levi is just horrifying. He looks unhealthy. He looks like he's starving. He looks like he's about to die. And, I have to admit that I definitely feel bad for Levi here. Because, something horrible had to happen that he ended up in this state, right? And speaking of this, that definitely begs the question, what? What has happened to him? Especially now, knowing that he is one of the Ackermans, this question becomes even more interesting because he potentially may be Mikasa's brother. So, how come that Mikasa's brother ended up in a state like this? Of course, I don't know the answer. I suppose that at one point we will learn the answer to this, but what I do know is that he definitely looks horrible, and I think that Kenny felt bad for him, especially because maybe Kenny saw himself in Levi. Kenny is a serial killer, and usually there's something which makes you become a killer. Maybe it's a trauma, maybe it's a loss of a person you love, something like that. And maybe Kenny had a troubled childhood, and that is why he saw himself in Levi. And maybe that's why it made him feel bad for Levi, and that's why he decided that he will help Levi and raise him, which he did. Yeah, I think that's almost it. That's almost everything that I can get out of these three images. The only one thing which I think I can assume out of these three images is here, the fact that he has a lot of blood stains on his coat. So I suppose that at this moment in time, Kenny was already a killer. But yeah, besides these things, there's almost nothing else I can learn from these images. And after this flashback scene, Levi escaped into a tavern. He hid behind the bar. Kenny then found him and they had a conversation. There were a lot of interesting things said in that conversation. For example, like, it was all we could do to stay alive in that garbage heap. That was said by Kenny, and I think that he is implying here that they both lived in that underground city where Levi lived, in No Regrets. And it's not only this that is hinting towards that fact, because if we go back to that flashback scene, Levi here looks like completely pale, and we know that people in that underground city don't have access to sun. So, what I'm trying to say is that there are some hints that they have lived in that underground city, because I think that place is the worst place where you can live. But yeah, going back to their conversation, I think then Kenny also said that he thinks that he knows why Levi joined the Survey Corps, and in his opinion, Levi joined because he needed to have a hobby. Now, I don't know if that's actually true. Judging by Levi's facial expression when Kenny was talking, I suppose that it could be true, because, as I said, his facial expression wasn't denying what Kenny was saying. But at the same time, I do remember that in No Regrets, I think Levi thought to himself that he's joining the Survey Corps because he wants to follow Erwin. So I don't know if Kenny was right here, but maybe he was. I can't really tell. I suppose the only one who knows this answer is Levi. But what I will say here is that I agree with Kenny. I agree with his philosophy. Not fully, because Kenny clearly thinks that killing humans is an acceptable hobby, which in my opinion is not. I'm not a strict person. In my opinion, you can do whatever you want, as long as you're enjoying it. But also as long as you're not damaging other people, which killing clearly does. So I don't fully agree with Kenny, but I agree with his, with his main point of his philosophy, which is that if you want to lead a fulfilling life, you need a hobby. And I agree with that. Having a hobby, having something to do which you enjoy, is really essential in life. But yeah, then I think after that, Levi used the gun which was owned by the tavern owner. He shot Kenny and used that to escape. And I think after that we had a scene where Kenny, after Levi escaped, I think we had a scene between Kenny and I think that woman who I think appears to be, I don't know, his assistant, his right hand. There's a woman who's constantly, besides Kenny, who's constantly with him. and had a conversation, and Kenny at one point said this: "Wonder when I'm gonna start getting closer to my dream." Now this is really interesting to me because Kenny, to me, I don't know how to phrase this. He seems to me like a really capable person, human being, like, you know, mentally and physically, you know, he seems to be one of those people who can deal with any problems. I mean, as I said, he's a person who killed so many policemen, but they never got him. In this episode, and not just this episode, I guess in both of these episodes of season 3, he outsmarted everyone else and succeeded with his plan. He caught Eren and Historia. He seems to be a guy who can do whatever he wants at any given time. If he wants to steal something, he will steal that. If he wants to kill someone, he will kill that someone. Because no one will ever get him, right? He will always be able to escape the hand of justice. So for a guy like him, who probably, as I said, was always able to do whatever he wanted, to still be chasing his dream, that speaks volume. Because that means that his dream is very difficult to achieve. So that begs the question, what could his dream be? I don't know. I won't even try to speculate because I don't know Kenny enough. But it is interesting. It is interesting that he still is chasing his dreams. And I suppose that whatever his dream is, I suppose that the king and the government can grant him his wishes, can help him to achieve his dream, because I suppose that that's why Kenny is helping the king and the king's council. And yeah, basically after that, I think we had a scene where Mikasa was talking with John, Armin, Connie, and Sasha, and they were talking about the message which Levi left, and that message was, as we now know, that they need to be prepared to fight humans from now on. And that actually happened a few moments later. They were forced to fight with those Kenny soldiers. And I think then Levi killed a few soldiers, which shocked, I think, especially Jean. I mean, I suppose that everyone was shocked, but it was Jean's, but especially Jean's reaction was highlighted when Levi killed those soldiers. And then Levi gave the orders to Armin and Jean that they need to secure the carriage, and they followed these orders. They landed on that carriage. Then I think Mikasa knocked down that woman who was riding the carriage, and then Jean was preparing himself to kill that woman. He wasn't able to. She used that to knock him down, but then she hesitated to kill him, which gave Armin the time to kill her. And I already talked about this a bit in my post-reaction thoughts segment, Armin killing this woman, and I will talk about this more later on when I will talk about that campfire scene. For now, I will just follow this episode to not confuse anyone, and this episode, after this scene, moved to the capital of this civilization, which is called Royal Capital Mitras. And I think this is the first time we've seen the official name of this capital city. At least I think so. But anyways, we then had a scene in the throne room. And in this throne room we had the king, or rather the fake king. And if I'm being honest, I don't even know if he is a lord, so for now I'll just call him Fritz. Basically in this throne room we had Fritz and all the other members of this council, except Lord, or rather King Reiss. And basically they had a conversation, and now if I quickly go through that, I think for the most part this guy was talking, and he said that not only have we failed to draw information out of Erwin, but we have yet to even locate Eren Yeager and Historia. At this rate, we will have gained nothing from freezing the Servicorps. So basically he's saying that they've tried to interrogate Erwin and they weren't successful. They haven't drawn out any information out of Erwin, and he starts to question if freezing the Servicorps has actually any benefits to them. And then he follows up by saying if we probe too hard, we'll end up teaching them things they didn't know yet. And this basically confirms that my theory was correct, that Fritz and these guys, these members of this council, probably know the secrets of the wall, that they know a lot more than the rest of humanity, than the rest of this population. And then the guy who was sitting next to him replied by saying, instead of concerning ourselves with what they know, focus on what they tried to learn. That will do well enough. Basically, I think he's saying here that they need to change their approach, that instead of trying to learn what specific information they already know, they should try to figure out what information they were trying to learn. And then he follows up by saying we should use the Humanity Charter to take care of them, just as we've been doing thus far. And if I'm being honest, I'm not fully understanding this. I don't know what specifically he meant here. And the main issue is because I don't know what is the Humanities Charter. I looked up the definition of charter and I can read it again. Now, one meaning is a written grant by the sovereign or legislative power of a country by which a body such as a city, company, or university is founded, or its rights and privileges defined. And the other meaning is the hiring of an aircraft, ship, or motor vehicle for special purpose. Now, I suppose the first meaning is more likely. I could be wrong, but whatever the meaning is, I don't know what this guy was talking about, especially because he said, just as we've been doing thus far. So he's saying that so far, a thing called the Humanity Charter was taking care of them. What was taking care of them? I don't know what they mean. Do they mean law? The law system? Because I don't know what else could he be referring to other than the law system and law enforcement. Because that's basically the main way in which, the government can influence on the Survey Corps. So maybe that's what he was referring to when he was talking about the Humanity Charter. But I can't really tell. And especially if that's not true, if my explanation is not true, then I have no idea what he meant when he said this. I don't know, maybe it's because of my lack of English or something like that. Or maybe it's supposed to be this way. Maybe I shouldn't be aware of what the Humanity Charter is. Maybe it's something which a viewer like me at this stage is not supposed to know. And maybe that explains why I have no idea what he's talking about here. So yeah, I apologize. I don't know what he meant here. So the only thing which I can do now is to move on. And basically after this scene, someone came in and brought a message. It was a message from Rod Reiss, and he basically informed these guys that they caught Eren and Historia. And basically after that, the throne room scene has ended. But before I move on, I just want to quickly talk about the appearances of these characters in this scene, because I took a closer look at them, because we got a much better look at their appearances compared to the previous episode when they were mostly covered in a shadow. So I took a closer look at them. I have to admit that I haven't learned a lot of new information, but I did learn some pieces of information, like, for example, this guy, judging by his necklace, I think we can assume that he's either a priest or a religious leader, probably the main religious leader, considering the fact that he's attending this council, this meeting. Now, the guy who sits next to him, I have to admit that this guy does not give away a lot of information through his appearance, but I have to say that when I initially took a closer look at him, the thing which stood out the most to me was the thing which he's wearing around his neck. I don't know how these things are called, but I'm pretty sure that Levi used to wear something like this, like all the time, I think. And because of that, when I saw this, I immediately thought about a potential connection between this guy and Levi, but then I also remembered that I have already seen some other people wear something similar to this. Like, I'm pretty sure that Olo was wearing something like this, and maybe even Eren's father. No, I don't know if Dr. Jaeger was wearing this, but I think I've seen a couple of people wear this, and I'm pretty sure that Levi was wearing this and that Olo was wearing this. So judging by this, I think this doesn't really mean anything. This is probably just a, fashion clothing accessory, a common clothing accessory in my opinion. And I think looking at his appearance, I really cannot learn basically anything. I don't think this guy gives away any information through his appearance. And the same thing could be said about this guy. Even though his appearance is interesting, it doesn't give away any new information. I mean, the only thing which I can say is that it does look, how should I say, a bit expensive. It seems like a jacket which a nobleman would be wearing, so this guy is maybe a nobleman. But other than that, I don't really have anything else to say about his appearance. But in contrast to that, I think that the guy who sits next to him, that his appearance gives away the most information. Now his jacket immediately stood out to me already in the previous episode when I first saw this jacket. I knew that it looked familiar, but I wasn't able to remember where have I seen this before. But now that I spent more and more time thinking about this, more and more time trying to remember where I've seen this jacket, I realized that I saw this at the beginning of season 1. I'm almost certain that those instructors, those teachers in the training corps, those guys, the bald instructor and the instructor with the gray hair and glasses, I think all of those guys were wearing, at least color-wise, the same jacket as this guy. So does that mean that this guy is an instructor? That this guy is a teacher? Maybe, but I'm not certain because I also think that Zachary, I think that's his name, that Zachary, the Supreme Commander, was also wearing a similar jacket. So, on one hand you have the Supreme Commander who's at the top of the military, and on the other hand you have the instructors, the teachers, which I suppose are somewhere at the bottom of the military rankings. So it's kind of hard to determine his position, because I don't know all the positions, all the ranks of the military. I don't know how specifically that works. So again, with the knowledge that I have, I can't really determine his position in the military, but I'm almost certain that he is a part of the military. I don't know at what rank, he could be an instructor, or maybe he's, the right hand of Zachary, who knows. But no matter his position, what I can determine right now is that he is almost certainly a member of the military. So that's one thing. Now the other thing which stands out on him is this necklace, because when I saw it, I immediately started to think about Erwin, because I think Erwin always used to wear a similar necklace. And then I went through this episode trying to find a scene where Erwin is wearing that necklace, but I couldn't find any. But while doing this, while trying to find a scene, I uncovered this. That Nile is wearing the same necklace as this guy in the council. Like, they look exactly the same. Now, does this mean anything? I'm not so sure, because maybe the same thing which I said when I was talking about this guy can be applied here. Maybe this is just, an accessory, a common accessory. Especially if my memory is correct, Erwin also wears a necklace like this, which would be a further indication that this is just something that people wear in this world, and that it doesn't really mean anything other than that it's just an accessory. But still, the fact that Nile and him are wearing the exact same necklace, and the fact that, if you think about it, this guy and Nile do kind of look similar. So, I don't know, is this an indication that they're related? Is this guy his father? Is this guy Nile's brother? I don't know, but definitely this is something that I wanted to highlight. Because maybe he is the reason why Nile joined the police brigade in the first place. We know that Nile intended to join the Survey Corps, which then he didn't, so maybe he was pressured to join the police brigade by this guy, because this guy definitely has to have a lot of power. He is a member of this king's council, so maybe he persuaded Nile to join the police brigade. But anyways, the main point here is that I find this detail interesting. Maybe the fact that Nile and him are wearing the same necklace means nothing, but maybe it could mean a lot, and I guess we'll just have to find out. But yeah, the last character which was also featured in this scene was of course Fritz, but looking at his appearance, I haven't uncovered anything new. So, yeah, that's it. That's it about me talking about their appearances. So, let's now go back to the episode. Basically, after this throne room scene, we had this scene between Nile and Erwin, where it was confirmed that Nile and Erwin had a past. They were probably friends who were training together. They both wanted to join the Survey Corps. Of course, Erwin, as we all know, did, but Nile, of course, obviously hasn't. Now here comes the question, why? What has happened that Nile decided to not join the Survey Corps, but the police brigade instead? And I mean, there could be a ton of different explanations. I mean, as I said, maybe this guy, who potentially is his relative, persuaded him to join the police brigade. Maybe it was Nile's own decision. Maybe he decided that he does not want to risk his life in the Survey Corps. Maybe the relationship between him and Erwin became, strained. Maybe they started to fight with each other. Maybe they weren't, maybe they became enemies through their training years. Like, who knows what happened? Like, there's a giant list of possibilities which could explain Nile's decision to join the police brigade. So that's why I won't try to guess here, because I just don't have enough information about Nile and his past with Erwin. But it's interesting nonetheless, it's interesting to know that these guys were friends at one point. I mean, maybe they still are, because it kind of feels like they respect each other, but it doesn't feel like their relationship doesn't feel like a friendship. It feels that there's something wrong between these two. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that Nile decided to join the police brigade, or maybe it's something else. But definitely they don't come across as good friends. But they also don't come across as enemies, if I'm being honest. It seems that they kind of respect each other. But yeah, going back to their conversation, Eren then said some interesting things like, this tiny world is about to change. Will that change bring hope or despair? Can the future of the humanity be entrusted to the government or not? Okay, here I see that some parts of the conversation are missing. Maybe I forgot to make all the screenshots, but I know that Erwin then followed up by saying some things like, who do you trust? Who's right, who's wrong? Like, he was asking these questions to Nile, something like that. And then Nile was shocked, and Nile said, Erwin, just what are you planning to do? And Erwin responded by saying the same thing as I always do, gamble. Now, it's really hard to analyze this dialogue between Erwin and Nile, especially Erwin's part, because he was really vague with the things which he was saying. Like, for example, this tiny world is about to change. Like, does he know this? Or is he just predicting this? Or is he saying these things just to manipulate with Nile? I have no idea. I have no idea what's the right answer. Because, as I said, he was really vague with what he was saying. He wasn't giving away a lot of information, and with my knowledge at this point in time, it's really hard to decode this dialogue of Erwin. So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to see in the future episodes what he really meant here. So yeah, basically, let's now move on. And after that, we had a scene where Armin, Levi, Jean, Mikasa, Sasha and Connie were sitting around a campfire. I think they were hiding in that storage house where Armin and Jean were taken hostage in the previous episode. And basically that scene was mostly focused on Armin and his guilt. He felt guilty for killing that woman. When he saved Jean, he said things like, I bet the woman I killed was a good, kind-hearted person. She must have been much more human than me. And after that, Levi talked to him and explained to him that if he wouldn't have done what he did, then Jean would be dead. And Levi thanked to Armin for saving Jean's life. And here, I talked about this a lot already in my post-reaction thoughts segment. I understand Armin feeling this way. I understand that he feels guilty. I understand that he feels devastated. Which is also shown then later on in a scene where he specifically says that we can't call ourselves good people anymore. So this whole thing really devastated him. Like, this is extremely shocking to him, and I understand him. Like, I personally, I don't know how I would have felt killing a human. So I definitely can't really judge Armin's feelings because I don't know how he specifically feels. But again, I will say that he shouldn't be blaming himself, you know? I understand if you feel bad for killing someone, but he shouldn't be blaming himself. As I said, they were just defending themselves, and at the end of the day, even though, yes, she hesitated when she wanted to kill Jean, but she was a member of Levi's gang. So this means that if she were to survive, she would still continue to serve to Kenny. She would still continue to kill other people, probably for money. So basically, Armin hasn't only saved Jean, but he potentially also saved all the people which that woman would probably kill at some point in the future, right? If that makes sense. So again, I definitely understand the fact that he's devastated, but I don't think that he should be, feeling guilty. I don't believe that he should be labeling himself as a bad person, because he's not. And then after that, John said that now he realized that he was wrong, that he now understands that he needs to be prepared to kill people and that he won't hesitate if he will have to kill someone. But then Levi said to him, I don't pretend to know what's right. Who's to say you made the wrong choice? That was definitely interesting, but it wasn't that unexpected, because if you think about it, this has always been Levi's philosophy. Even back in season 1, when he was talking with Eren in the forest of the giant trees, he said to Eren that he doesn't know what's right or wrong, but he also advised Eren that he should choose the option which he won't regret. So this was always a trait of his. Levi was always a person who did not want to determine what's right or wrong, which is definitely interesting, because then you start to ask yourself, well, why is then he really doing all these things? Then why is he trying to save people if he's not sure that that's the right thing to do? Does that mean that Kenny was actually right? That Levi is doing these things just because he wants to do something? Just because he needs a hobby? I don't know, but it's definitely interesting that this is basically Levi's philosophy and his opinion regarding what's right and what's wrong. And then after that, he decided that they will interrogate this guy, who then ended up being Dimo Reeves, who was actually, as stated by Mikasa, of course featured before in this show. He was featured at the beginning in season 1, I think it was episode 5 or 6, and Mikasa and Levi then have interrogated him, and Dimo said that they were doing this just because the police brigade was forcing them to do this, and they have failed. And then he said that now that they have failed, his company will be ruined, and Levi proposed if they would team up, and in exchange Levi said that he will try to assure that his city and his employees won't be starving. And Dimo, of course, as it was later on seen, agreed to that, and with help of Dimo and his son, Levi and our characters were able to kidnap Jael Sanes and the other guy, his name is Ralph, I think. And then, of course, Hange and Levi have started to torture Jael, and they have started to question him. This is definitely, Hange's promise being fulfilled, because in the previous episode she promised to Jael that she will find the one who did that to Nick, and that she will take revenge, which she did in this episode. Which I didn't expect that this will happen so soon, but it did. And as I said, they were torturing Jill, and I think they pulled off all of his nails, but he didn't say anything. He only said that, do you have any idea why there has yet to be a war within the confines of these walls? I don't know what confines means. And then he said, it's because we in the first interior squad dirtied our hands to protect the peace. And then he gave 3, examples. He said that the teacher who was too smart for his own good, the air-headed couple determined to fly, even that whore from some ranch in the sticks. Humanity has only survived because we erase people like them. And then Jill also followed up by saying, I believe in the king and the peace he brought to the walls. So basically Jill is saying that his squad, he and his squad was assigned to eliminate people which potentially have learned some information, some secrets which the government didn't want them to know, and he and his squad were doing this because they wanted to preserve peace inside the walls. Which only means that the information which the government is aware of would potentially drive the people into a panic mode, I suppose. So, of course, now the main question is, what is that information? What is the information which the government is aware of that would make the people start panicking and would ruin the peace inside the walls? I mean, it can't be the fact that Reiss is the king. Like, that's not... I mean, yes, that's what Jill said, but I don't believe that that's everything that the government knows, because why would the peace be ruined if people were to learn that Reiss is the king? I don't see that. I don't get that, so there has to be something else. I suppose that something dangerous is going to happen. You know, maybe the titans inside the walls will awake at one point, and the government is aware of that, and they don't want to tell that to the people so that they don't panic. And if that's the case, then of course, I definitely understand their view. I understand what the government is trying to achieve. They don't want people to panic, but that's never the best solution, because if really something like that is going to happen, if the titans inside the walls will awake at some point in the near future, then the people will eventually learn about this thing one way or another, you know? So is it worth killing some innocent people just to make sure that the other people don't start panicking? No, I don't agree with that, you know, because at the end of the day, the truth always comes out. So it's sad that so many people were tortured by Jel and his squad because of this, but at least now this thing will probably stop, because Jelsanes, his squad, the government are slowly getting exposed by our characters. Now, before moving on, I just want to quickly talk about these three images. When Jel was talking about his victims, we've seen these three images, and I of course analyzed them because I knew that they have to have some secret meanings behind them, because otherwise why would Attack on Titan, why would this show them if they are irrelevant? But they aren't, because I think each image potentially contains a lot of information. Now if we look at the first one, Jel here said that this was a teacher who was too smart for his own good. And, you know, when I was looking at this image, I knew that this guy looked familiar. And then I remembered that he looks really similar to this person, who I have already mentioned in my previous video when I talked about this opening, and I said that this guy is potentially Erwin's father. And now I will admit, I'm not entirely sure if these two people are actually the same people, but if we look at this image from the opening, this does seem like a, classroom, which indicates that this guy, potentially Erwin's father, was a teacher. So could this be that the guy here, that this guy is Erwin's father, and that the Jel killed Erwin's father? If that's true, that's really interesting, but I'm not entirely sure if it's true, because I can't really tell if these two people are the exact same person, but they do look similar, so I don't know. Maybe this is Erwin's father. I guess we'll just have to see in the future episodes. Now here, with this image, it was a bit more tricky, because we don't have a clear picture of this couple which was determined to fly, but we can see that they do have blonde hair, I think, and of course, because we don't have a clear image of them, it's hard to determine who these people could be. Maybe we don't know them, but maybe we do. Maybe these people are Armin's parents. Now, this is really just something which you could call a weak theory. This is just purely speculating, because there's no evidence for this. But I know that there's something suspicious about Armin's parents, because for one, we know that they were venturing outside, if I'm not mistaken. But Armin never said outside of the walls, right? But Armin never said that his parents were, members of the Survey Corps. I mean, you could say that is no proof that they weren't, but in a way it is, because if his parents were actually members of the Survey Corps, wouldn't he have mentioned that to Eren, Mikasa, or anyone? I mean, imagine if you go into the same profession as your parents. Wouldn't you mention that to someone, saying that you are going in the same footsteps as your father, for example? I don't know, maybe Armin is just that kind of a person who would not say that, or maybe he did, but it was off screen. But with the information we have now, it seems that his parents were not members of the Survey Corps. But I know that they have ventured outside of the walls, because it was stated at one point in Season 1. Plus, Armin's grandfather had that book about the outside world. So maybe Armin's parents were just explorers who wanted to see the outside world, and that's why they came up with the idea of using this air balloon, but they failed and they were killed by Gel and his squad. What also supports this theory is the fact that Armin never said what's the status of his parents. He never said that they're dead. He never said that they're alive. Maybe they just disappeared and Armin is not aware if they're dead or alive. And they disappear, and potentially they have disappeared because of Gel and his squad. But of course, there's no guarantee that these two people in this image are Armin's parents, but if I had to guess, I would say that this is a possibility. And now if we go to the last image. Now this image, I think, reveals the most information, because first of all, as soon as I saw this, when I was taking a closer look, I immediately thought, whoa, is this Historia? And that definitely is Historia, because we see some images of a young Historia in the ending, and they look the same. This has to be Historia. And this woman here seems to be the woman which I highlighted in the ending. There was a woman which Historia sees in the ending. I think I have an image of her. Yeah, here it is. That seems to be the same woman which is killed in this scene. And Gel referred to her as a whore. And why would Gel call her that way? I suppose because she potentially, had an affair. Maybe an affair with the king. So I think it is. I'm not sure, but I think this is Historia's mother. And I think they have killed her so that she wouldn't reveal to anyone that her child is King Reiss's child. Of course, here comes the question, if they have killed Historia's mother, why haven't they killed Historia? I suppose because she is the king's daughter, she has his blood, maybe that's why they spared her life. But yeah, judging by this scene, judging by what Gel said, judging by the ending, this has to be her mother. And if you think about it, this is horrible. Historia saw her mother die, like in front of her. They cut her throat, like right in front of her. Like, this is horrible. It's sad because Historia has to have traumatic experiences from this day, from the murder of her mother. And maybe that's why Historia was always pretending to be that over-the-top positive person, because she was trying to escape from her real life, from her real memories. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's her mother. But yeah, other than that, I think that's everything that I was able to learn out of these images. Like completely gave up. He said that he will tell them everything. He even said about Gel that, so what, that was his decision. He would never shut up about peace of the king. About peace and the king. And then he said, do us a favor and kill him already. Which we just shocked Gel, and I think that made him decide to just tell what he knows. Which he did. He said that Reiss is the true royal family. Now, I wonder if that's everything he knows, and I wonder if that's everything he told Hange and Levi. As I said, I suppose that this is not the only secret which the government is aware of. Maybe it's the only secret which Gel is aware of, but there has to be more. Like, this is not the only secret the only information which the government is aware of. But yeah, I won't talk too much about this because I already did. In my post-reaction thoughts segment, I talked a lot about the fact that Historia ended up being the true heir to the throne, which is still funny to me because, as I said, I accidentally figured that out back in season 2, so I never expected that this will then actually happen. I think ever since she told to Hange that she's Historia Reiss, ever since from that moment, from seeing Hange's reaction, because if she were to be the king's daughter, I suppose that Hange would have a totally different reaction. So ever since that moment, I started to doubt that there's any chance of Historia being the king's daughter, but now quite the opposite happened. She is the king's daughter, and it will be interesting to see what this means for the story. And then after that scene, we had this scene where Kenny killed Dimo, and of course after he killed him, he said, or rather revealed, that Levi is one of the Ackermans. And also about that, I already have talked a lot. The one thing which I will highlight here is the fact that it seems interesting that Kenny is aware of this, because it seems that Levi is not. So how does Kenny know that Levi is an Ackerman? Or maybe Levi is aware that he's an Ackerman, but if he is, then why hasn't he said anything to Mikasa? So yeah, that's definitely an interesting question, and as I said, him being an Ackerman is extremely interesting and extremely, shocking in a way that I never saw this coming. It's one of those things where you never think about such a possibility. It's like thinking that Connie is potentially Hange's son. You never think about a possibility like that. I'm not saying that it's unrealistic or random, but it is like extremely unexpected. I mean, if you saw my reaction, I wasn't even sure if I'm understanding this correctly because I never saw something like this happening. But he is an Ackerman, and with the information that I have, I can't really tell what this means to the story. I can only speculate. But there's only one thing which I'm pretty sure about, and that is the fact that he is related to Mikasa. There's always a chance that they're not, but what are the chances then in a society like this, in a civilization like this, where there's not a lot of people living inside these walls, what are the chances that two people inside these walls have the same last name, but they're not related? I don't think this is even possible. And as I said in my post-reaction thoughts, I don't believe that Attack on Titan would give Levi this last name without having any significant meaning behind it. I don't think it's a coincidence that he is Levi Ackerman. Anyways, after that, we've seen that Dimo's son has survived, and he has seen the murder of his father. And that is really interesting because previously in this episode, at one point, they were speaking to one another, with each another, and Dimo said to his son that merchants can't afford to have weak instincts. You can't focus only on immediate profits, you got to understand how to plan for long-term gains as well. And when you see a chance, bite onto it and never let go. Got it? Remember that. And yeah, basically, why am I highlighting this? Well, because the show highlighted this, and it seems that this will mean something for the future of Dimo's son and I suppose his decisions and his actions. So it seems that Dimo's son will try to bite on the best opportunity possible. So what could he possibly do? Will he join the police brigade and Kenny? You could say that no, because Kenny killed his father, right? He will probably try to avenge his father. But at the same time, maybe he's blaming Levi and everyone else for the death of his father. Because basically his father got killed because he helped Levi. So who knows who he's truly blaming, and who knows what will end up being the best opportunity for him. And it will be interesting to see what specifically will this guy do, what specifically will the son of Dimo do. But anyways, then after that we had the scene where Hange and Levi and Moblit explained to Sasha, Jean, Armin, Mikasa, and Connie the truth about Historia. They've shown a picture of King Reiss, and they said and they called him Rod Reiss. Now I was confused when I saw this episode because I was like, whoa, what does this mean? Is this a title? Because a rod is a staff, and I immediately thought that maybe this has some special meaning behind it. But now that I think about it, it seems that Rod is his name and not a title with a special meaning as I initially thought it was. And then after that, we actually have seen Lord Reiss and his interaction with Historia. He hugged her and said to her, "I'm sorry for everything." Historia was visibly shocked. And then we also had a scene where Eren was lying on the ground. It seems that he hasn't fully waken up yet. And that's where this episode ended. Yeah, there's not really that much to talk about here. Because it was a short scene and not a lot has happened. And the only thing, of course, which is interesting is the fact that he apologized to Historia, he hugged her. So it seems that he cares about her, which I wasn't really sure about. Because before this scene, it never felt as if he really cared about her. I mean, because her whole life, she was forced to pretend to be someone else. She was forced to have a fake name. She was forced to live somewhere else. She was forced to, who knows in what conditions she was forced to live. I mean, now we also know that her mother was killed in front of her eyes, which was probably on the king's order. So, if you think about it, a lot of things are indicating that he doesn't care about Historia. But in this scene, it was shown that he does, so that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. And maybe this explains why he wanted to capture Historia, because he cares about her. But at the same time, if that would have been the case, then why hasn't he captured her before? Why has he waited until this point? So maybe this indicates that there's also still a possibility that he captured her because she needs her, because there's something special about her. And I talked about this a lot in my previous discussion in the previous episode. But yeah, basically, as I said, that's where the episode ended. I suppose I should now focus on the information card. And basically this info card seems to be an info card about those weapons which Ken and his squad have access to. Basically, this info card says that these are called anti-personnel 3D maneuvering gear. And this model of a 3D maneuvering gear was developed to combat humans instead of titans. It allows the user to move too quickly for a human to react, enabling attacks from blind spots. This device is especially formidable in cities and forests. Yeah, that's really interesting because this info card reveals that these weapons, this equipment was designed to combat humans. But even knowing that, I still have that main question, which is, where can you find these? I still don't have an answer for that. I don't know who someone did, according to this info card, develop these things, but who and where? I still don't know that. But yeah, that's basically the only thing which I will say about this info card. Now, is there anything that I wanted to talk about or anything that I missed? But yeah, I think I talked about all the things which I wanted to. The only thing which I forgot to mention is the scene when Hange and Armin had a conversation, and she highlighted to him that if we don't rescue him fast, Eren will be eaten. So basically, I think I talked about this already in my post-reaction thoughts segment and during my reaction. Basically, this confirms my theory, which I had since the end of season 2, that if you want to gain the Titan shifting power, that means that you need to become a Titan and then eat that Titan shifter from whom you want to take that power away. So I was aware of this before. I was pretty certain that that theory is correct, and now it's been confirmed by Hange. I don't think I need to add anything here other than that it's interesting that now Hange and all of our characters are aware of this information. Also, before I end, I just want to mention one thing regarding Historia and her royal status, and that is the fact that it's ironic that her best friend was living pretending to be what basically Historia is. Ymir was pretending that she has the blood of the king. And now, ironically, it's actually Historia who truly has the blood of the king. But of course, maybe I'm wrong, because who knows what this society looks like in Ymir's hometown. There's a high chance that that hometown of Ymir has their own king. So yeah, so maybe when they were talking about Ymir's blood, they were referring to a different king, but maybe they weren't. Maybe they were referring to King Reiss, which would of course make things a lot more interesting, because that would mean that there has to be a significant meaning behind Historia having the blood of the king. But at this point in time, it's hard to tell, you know. As I said, it's hard to tell if her being a member of the royal family means anything extremely significant. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, of course, it is significant, because she may end up being the queen. But in regards to the Titans, in regards to the walls, in regards to Ymir's hometown, in regards to the major secrets of this world, I don't know if her being a member of the royal family necessarily means anything. But yeah, that's it for this video. I hope that I haven't left out anything. There's a lot of things to talk about. I remember that someone said that when season 3 will come, my videos will become 3 hours long, because there's just so much to talk about. And yeah, it really seems that as of right now, that everything that happened in season 3, almost every scene, there's a ton of things to comment on. So again, that's why I really hope that I haven't forgot anything. I really hope that I haven't missed anything. If I have, let me know in the comments section if there's anything that I missed or forgot to talk about and you want me to talk about. I'll do that then in the next video, but I think that I covered everything that I wanted to. But yeah, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope that you're enjoying your day. And yeah, if you have any feedback for me, I will definitely highly appreciate that, because, you know, I'm just trying to constantly improve myself, especially when it comes to me talking about this show, especially when it comes to my discussion part, because, you know, English is not my first language. And I have to admit, maybe you don't hear that, but the echo in this room is really strong. And sometimes it's so hard to hear myself talking, and I don't know if I'm talking too loudly, too silent, if I'm talking too fast. So yeah, feedback would be massively appreciated. And yeah, that's it. I will see you when I will watch episode 3 of season 3.